Welcome to the deep dive. Today, think of us as your guides, maybe your instructors, for a really fundamental part of IT audit and assurance.
That's right. We're diving into the ISACA ITIA framework. That's the Information Technology Audit Framework.
It's basically the rulebook, the professional practices framework that IT auditors use to, well, do their jobs properly.
Yeah, it sets the standards, gives the guidance, and today we're focusing in on something absolutely key.
Which is?
Performance Standard 1205. It's all about evidence. And we'll also cover the related performance guidelines 2205. This is all from the ITIA 4th edition.
Okay, evidence. So if we were teaching Audit 101, this is like day one material, right? Because without evidence, what do you have?
Exactly, nothing solid. Understanding evidence is, the absolute bedrock for doing good IT assurance work. It lets you make judgments, draw conclusions you can actually stand behind.
You need that foundation, otherwise the whole audit could just fall apart.
Precisely. Get the evidence wrong, and, well, the rest doesn't matter much.
Okay, so let's get into the core principle then. Performance Standard 1205. What's the main takeaway?
The standard is very clear. It says IT audit and assurance practitioners shall means you must obtain and preserve sufficient and appropriate evidence to achieve the audit objectives.
Okay, shall, mandatory. And those two words pop up again. Sufficient and appropriate, they always seem to go together.
They do, and for good reason. They represent two different dimensions of evidence quality.
So it's not just about volume, like grabbing every log file you can find.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Sufficiency is about quantity, yes. Do you have enough evidence? Does it cover all the important questions related to your audit objective and scope?
Enough puzzle pieces to see the picture.
That's a good way to put it. You need enough coverage.
So back to my example, if we're auditing password strength, just having the written policy document isn't sufficient.
Not even close. That's just one piece. You
Yeah.
need to look at actual system settings, maybe talk to users, check password history logs if they exist. You need enough different types of evidence to feel confident.
Right, which brings us to the other word, appropriate. What makes evidence appropriate?
Appropriateness is all about the quality of the evidence. And quality breaks down into two main things: relevance and reliability.
Okay, relevance first. That sounds straightforward. Does it actually relate to what we're auditing?
Exactly. Is it pertinent? Does it directly address the audit objective and the specific risks or controls you're looking at? Does it help answer the so what question?
So if I'm auditing server patching, evidence about network firewall rules, while maybe interesting, isn't directly relevant to patching?
Correct. It might be relevant for a different objective, but not that one. The evidence has to logically connect.
Makes sense. And the second part of appropriateness was reliability.
Reliability. This is huge. How trustworthy is the evidence? Can you depend on it? Where did it come from? Who created it? How was it maintained? Is it objective?
So thinking about reliability, maybe an automated system log that's hard to change is generally more reliable than, say, someone just telling you they follow the procedure.
Generally, yes, although testimonial evidence has its place. But things like the source, the independence of the source, the way it was gathered, these all impact reliability.
Got it. So you need enough evidence, and that evidence needs to be relevant and reliable. That's the core idea of Standard 1205.
That's the essence of it. Get those right, and you've got a solid basis for your audit opinion.
Okay, so that's the what. Standard 1205 tells us what we need. How did the performance guidelines, 2205, help us with the how?
Think of 2205 as the practical guide, the instruction manual. It gives you more detail on how to meet the standard. It talks about the different types of evidence you might encounter and use.
The toolkit, like you said before. So what tools are in this evidence toolkit according to 2205?
Right. The guidelines break it down. First, there's physical evidence, stuff you can, physically observe or touch.
Like seeing the fire suppression system in the server room.
Exactly. Or doing a count of backup tapes at the off-site storage location. It's tangible.
Seeing is believing sometimes. What's next?
Documentary evidence. This is probably the most common type. It's any information recorded paper or electronic.
So policies, procedures, system logs, emails, spreadsheets, database extracts.
All of it. Contracts, user manuals, program code listings, transaction records if it's written down or stored digitally. It's documentary evidence.
Okay, that's a big category.
It is. Then you have testimonial evidence. This is what you get from asking people questions.
Interviews, questionnaires.
Yep. Inquiries, confirmations. Get information from people who know inside or outside the organization you're auditing. It can be formal, like written confirmations, or informal chats.
Getting the story from the source. What else?
Analytical evidence. This is about looking at data and finding patterns, relationships, or trends. Comparing data sets, ratio analysis, looking for anomalies.
Like comparing this year's help desk tickets related to security incidents versus last year's.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Or analyzing system performance metrics over time.
Using the data to tell a story.
Okay.
Then there's computational evidence. Pretty straightforward checking calculations. Redoing the math.
Basically, yeah. Manually or using tools to verify accuracy. Checking spreadsheet formulas, verifying totals in reports.
Making sure 2 + 2 really equals 4 in their systems.
You got it. And finally, reperformance evidence. This is where the auditor actually does the process or control themselves.
So if there's a procedure for requesting access, the auditor might try following that procedure to see if it works as documented.
Precisely. You independently execute the control or procedure to confirm it operates effectively. It's a powerful technique.
Okay, so those are the types. Physical, documentary, testimonial, analytical, computational, and reperformance. That covers a lot of ground.
It does. And importantly, Guideline 2205 also reminds us to think about the reliability of each type. We touched on this, but it gives more pointers.
Right. Not all evidence is created equal. What makes some types generally more reliable?
Well, the guidelines suggest a few things. Evidence is often seen as more reliable if it's written rather than just spoken.
Okay, documentation beats just conversation.
Generally. Also, evidence you, the auditor, obtain directly is usually considered more reliable than evidence you get secondhand from the entity being audited.
Makes sense. First-hand knowledge.
Yeah. And evidence from independent third parties often carries more weight than purely internal stuff.
Like an external certification or report?
Exactly. Or evidence that's maintained by an independent party. Independence adds credibility.
So written, direct, independent, those are good indicators of reliability.
They're strong factors to consider, yes. Now, the guidelines also map these evidence types to the actual procedures auditors use to get them.
Connecting the what to the how. So how do we get testimonial evidence?
Through inquiry and confirmation, asking questions, sending out confirmation letters.
And physical evidence.
Observation, watching people perform tasks, looking at facilities, examining assets. But there's a caution here.
Oh.
Observation is only for that specific moment in time. And, people sometimes act differently when they know they're being watched, the Hawthorne effect.
Good point. So it's a snapshot, and maybe not even a typical snapshot.
Could be. So you often need to combine it with other procedures.
Okay. How about documentary evidence? How do we gather that?
Through inspection. That means examining records, documents, paper, or electronic. It can also mean physically examining an asset, like checking the serial number on a server.
Got it. Reviewing the paperwork, basically. Analytical evidence comes from.
Performing analytical procedures. Crunching the numbers, comparing data, trend analysis.
Computational.
Through recalculation or computation. Verifying the math.
And reperformance evidence.
By actually doing reperformance.
Right.
Executing the control or process yourself.
It all lines up nicely. The type of evidence suggests the procedure to obtain it.
It does. One other point the guidelines make is about the time period of evidence.
Why does timing matter so much?
Especially with digital stuff. Electronic data might not hang around forever. Files get updated or deleted, backups expire based on retention policies, systems get replaced.
So you might need to grab that log file now before it gets overwritten next week.
Exactly. You need to be timely. Evidence gathering isn't something you can always put off indefinitely, especially in dynamic IT environments.
So time sensitivity is a real factor for digital evidence.
Definitely. So all this evidence, gathered through these procedures using these types, this is what IT auditors use to do their job, to form their conclusions.
It's the raw material for the audit findings and the final report.
Absolutely. It's the foundation.
So for you listening, really grasping these ideas about evidence sufficient, appropriate, relevant, reliable, it gives you a practical way to think about the trustworthiness of IT systems, processes, or even reports you might read.
Yeah, whether you're looking at an internal report of vendor security claims or preparing for your own audit, asking questions based on these principles is key. Is there enough evidence? Is it the right kind of evidence? How trustworthy is it?
It empowers you, really. It helps you move beyond just taking information at face value and allows you to critically assess the basis for any claims being made. It's a core skill.
It absolutely is. Being able to evaluate the quality of evidence is fundamental in our field.
Okay, so let's quickly recap what we've covered in this teaching session. We dug into ISACA's Performance Standard 1205 and Guideline 2205.
We stressed the absolute requirement to get evidence that's both sufficient enough of it and appropriate, meaning it's relevant to the task and reliable or trustworthy.
And we walk through the main types of evidence: physical, documentary, testimonial, analytical, computational, and reperformance.
And the procedures we use to get them, like observation, inspection, inquiry, and reperformance itself, always thinking about reliability and sometimes the clock ticking on digital data.
So as you go about your work, or even just process information you come across about technology, try applying these concepts. Think about the evidence behind the statements.
In a world just drowning in data, being able to tell the difference between noise and actual solid evidence is probably more critical than ever. So maybe the question to leave you with is, what questions will you now ask when someone presents you with the facts?